The summer air was heavy with silence, broken only by the faint bleating of sheep scattered across the rolling fields. In the distance, a girl of 14 guided her flock homeward, her figure small against the vast, darkening horizon. She had walked this path countless times before, a routine so ordinary it carried no trace of fear. Yet this evening would end in horror. When the villagers found her, they recoiled in disbelief. Her body lay torn, her throat savaged, her skull crushed with a violence no human hand could wield. The grass around her was matted with blood, the earth itself bearing witness to something unspeakable. Some whispered it was a wolf. Others shook their heads, swearing no wolf could strike with such brutality. No beast of the forest could desecrate a child so completely. That night, grief rippled through the village like a sickness. Mothers clutched their children, terrified to let them stray from sight. Men sharpened blades and loaded muskets, staring into the woods with suspicion, but none dared enter. In the chapel, prayers rose with trembling voices, as though heaven itself needed to be reminded of Gevaudan's fragile existence. It was June of 1764, and a shadow had fallen upon the land. In the months that followed, more bodies would be found. Shepherds mauled, children dragged from pastures, travelers cut down on lonely roads. The killings were relentless, calculated, merciless. By the time the terror had run its course, over 100 lives would be claimed. But what haunted Gevaudan was no ordinary predator. It seemed to choose its victims with purpose, striking boldly in daylight, vanishing when pursued, defying every attempt to bring it down. The hunters failed. The soldiers failed. Even the command of a king could not end the bloodshed. So the question lingers still, what kind of creature could terrorize an entire province, and defy the crown of France itself? The land of Gevaudan lay in the south of France, a rugged wilderness of deep forests, jagged hills, and valleys where mist clung to the fields like a shroud. In the 1760s, it was a province marked by hardship. The 7 Years' War had drained the kingdom, leaving villages poor and weary. Farmers tilled rocky soil, shepherds led their flocks across lonely pastures, and every family lived at the mercy of the land. Here, wolves were no strangers. They haunted the woods, circling the herds at dusk, their howls a familiar warning in the night. Generations had lived with this predator and had learned to fight it. But soon the people swore in hushed voices that the killer in their midst was not a wolf at all. It was larger, swifter, crueler. A creature that attacked not with hunger alone, but with malice. In an age when faith and fear walked side by side, superstition shaped every shadow. Each mangled body was seen not only as a victim of claws and teeth, but as a message from beyond. Priests spoke of divine punishment. Parishioners whispered of the devil loosed upon the earth. Mothers crossed themselves when the wind rustled through the trees, as though the very air carried the presence of something unholy. Stories spread faster than the soldiers who were sent to stop the bloodshed. Children repeated tales of a demon beast with fiery eyes and a monstrous jaw. Old men recalled omens and curses from their youth, convinced the sins of France had drawn this punishment down upon Gevaudan. Fear became a contagion, passed from hearth to hearth until the province itself seemed haunted. What stalked the hills was not just a creature of flesh and bone. It was a phantom of the imagination, a terror that reached into the soul of a people already broken by war. And as the killings mounted, one truth became clear. Gevaudan was not merely fighting for survival, it was fighting for its very sanity. If you feel the weight of this forgotten fear pressing through the centuries, join us here on Echoes of Time. Subscribe and let the voices of history guide you. Or, if you choose not to, step into the comments and tell us why. Every voice adds to the story. It began with children, the most defenseless souls of the province. A boy tending cattle was found torn apart in a meadow, his small frame mangled as though by an enemy that sought not food, but destruction. Days later, a shepherdess vanished, her body discovered at the edge of a wood, her clothes shredded and soaked with blood. These were not the clean kills of an animal seeking meat. They were spectacles of ruin, staged in daylight, left where the whole village could see. Eyewitnesses emerged, trembling as they described what they had seen. A beast taller than any wolf, its back arched with unnatural power, its fur coarse and tinged red like rusted iron. Its head seemed too large, its jaw wide, its eyes burning with a feral intelligence. Some swore it carried a tail long enough to sweep the ground as it ran. These details, passed from mouth to mouth, painted the picture of a predator that belonged to no known species. The church bells tolled over the bodies, each ring a reminder that the enemy might be more than flesh. Priests warned of a scourge sent by God to punish a sinful land. They spoke of revelation and wrath, of a beast that carried the mark of the infernal. Villagers, their faces pale in candlelight, whispered that the devil had come to walk among them. Fear was not only in the forests. It lived now in the chapels, in the very prayers that once offered comfort. But terror does not stay contained within borders. News of the killings seeped beyond Gevaudan, carried on horseback and printed in Parisian papers. Readers in cafes whispered over their morning coffee about the monster in the south, an abomination that mocked hunters, slaughtered peasants, and defied the order of nature. The Beast of Gévaudan, though not yet by name, was already a legend in the making. If you've made it this far into the hunt, you probably enjoy stories of the past that still echo today. On Echoes of Time, we bring forgotten history to life. So if you haven't yet, consider subscribing. And if you don't want to, let us know why in the comments. I'd love to hear your reasons. Not every tale was one of helplessness. Out of the darkness rose moments of defiance, brief sparks of courage against an enemy that seemed beyond human strength. In one of the most chilling encounters, a group of children were attacked while tending their cattle. The beast sprang from the tree line, its jaws snapping, its body a blur of muscle and teeth. Panic swept through the group, but one boy, Jacques Portefaix, refused to surrender. With only a staff in his hands, he shouted for the others to stand their ground. Together, the children struck back with sticks and stones, driving the monster away. Though wounded and shaken, they survived. News of their defiance spread like fire, and in a land suffocated by fear, their courage became a legend. Another tale followed, that of Jeanne Jouve, remembered as the Maid of Gevaudan. She walked alone along a wooded path when the beast emerged, blocking her way. Its eyes fixed upon her, and in that instant she knew escape was impossible. But Jeanne carried nothing more than a simple farm tool. With it, she swung and struck, again and again, until the creature retreated into the forest, leaving her trembling but alive. Her defiance became a symbol, proof that even in the shadow of terror, resistance was possible. These stories passed from village to village, retold in candlelit rooms and crowded taverns. They gave the people something the crown could not, a glimmer of hope. Yet courage could not stop the rising number of graves. With each new death, the outcry grew louder. Priests petitioned for divine intervention. Nobles called for armed patrols. Families begged for the king himself to send aid. The people of Gevaudan were no longer asking for help. They were demanding it. If tales of defiance in the face of horror stir something in you, then stay with us here on Echoes of Time. Subscribe and walk with us into the shadows of history. Or, if you choose not to, step into the comments and tell us why. Your reasons are part of the story too. At last, the cries of Gevaudan reached the gilded halls of Versailles. Reports of slaughter, of children torn apart and villages haunted by a monster, had begun to stain the reputation of the crown itself. A king could not ignore such humiliation. Louis XV, eager to show his might, decreed that the beast would be destroyed. From the capital, he dispatched professional wolf hunters, men celebrated for their skill and ruthless efficiency. They did not arrive quietly. They came with fanfare, with banners and muskets gleaming. Their presence meant to reassure the peasants that royal authority could tame even the wildest terror. Alongside them came soldiers and dogs, a small army devoted to the hunt. The forests of Gevaudan echoed with the sound of horns, the barking of hounds, the crash of gunfire. Hundreds of men scoured the valleys, driving wolves from their dens, laying traps, combing the hills where the beast was said to roam. Each day, carcasses of ordinary wolves were paraded through the villages, declared to be the monster that had plagued the land. And yet, as bodies were buried and bells tolled, the killings continued. The beast seemed to mock the efforts of the crown, striking in broad daylight, slaughtering within earshot of patrols, escaping again and again into the woods. It moved with cunning, never falling to the traps or blades meant to stop it. For every royal proclamation of victory, another villager was carried to the grave. Soon, the newspapers of Paris took notice, and what had begun as whispers in the countryside became a scandal in the salons of the city. Articles ridiculed the incompetence of the monarchy, jesters mocked the royal hunts, and whispers spread that the king himself could not protect his subjects from a single beast. Gevaudan's nightmare had become Louis XV's disgrace. If the unraveling of power in the face of the unknown fascinates you, then join us here on Echoes of Time. Subscribe to follow history's shadows. And if you choose not to, share your thoughts in the comments. Tell us why the hunt for the past does not call to you. In the end, salvation did not come from the crown or from celebrated hunters of Paris, but from a quiet figure in the very heart of Gevaudan. Jean Chastel was no stranger to the wilds. A seasoned hunter, a man hardened by the same forests that now seemed cursed. For years he had watched the parades of failure, had seen wolves slain and yet heard the bells toll for new victims. By 1767, patience had run dry. That summer, the king's men and the villagers mounted yet another grand hunt, driving the beast toward a final reckoning. In the midst of this chaos, Chastel took his place. Some say he prayed before loading his musket. Others whisper he used special bullets, cast of silver and blessed by a priest. Whatever the truth, when the moment came, Chastel stood firm. The beast charged, its shape tearing through the brush, and with a single shot, he brought it down. The creature's corpse was unlike anything most had seen. Massive, twisted, its jaws lined with unnatural teeth. Soldiers carried it away, a trophy to still the doubts of a weary land. News spread swiftly to Versailles. The king's hunters declared victory. The nightmare was over, and the people were told they could return to their lives in peace. But peace did not come so easily. Those who had seen the carcass whispered that it was strange, too strange for a wolf. Some said its fur was patterned like no animal they knew. Others swore its body was mutilated before display, altered to fit a story. Rumors spread that the true beast still lurked in the shadows, because even after the so-called triumph, killings were reported in the hills. What Chastel shot that day may have ended the panic, but it did not silence the questions. The victory felt less like truth and more like theater, a performance staged for the eyes of France. CTA. Some say this was the true end of the beast. Others insist the mystery only deepened. Which side are you on? Share your take in the comments, and if you'd like to hear more stories like this one, you know what to do. Subscribe to Echoes of Time. The body of the slain creature was paraded as proof of victory. Yet in the months that followed, unease lingered. Official records declared the terror ended, but whispers told another story. Some claimed the killings stopped with Chastel's shot. Others counted fresh graves, insisting that the nightmare continued in the shadows. The numbers themselves were shrouded in doubt. Parish registers, carefully kept by priests, spoke of more than 60 confirmed deaths, each name written beside a cause that chilled the heart. Other accounts swelled the toll to well over 100, with countless others wounded or maimed. Was the truth buried in clerical error, or was it quietly erased to ease the conscience of a nation? Even the autopsy that was said to have taken place on the beast's carcass is a fog of contradiction. Some documents describe human remains within its stomach, others make no mention at all. Letters hinting at the findings were later reported missing, perhaps destroyed. Was this the ordinary loss of fragile 18th-century papers, or a deliberate act to conceal what could not be explained? Doubt crept through the villages and into the city salons. Did Chastel truly end the reign of terror, or was his triumph a convenient curtain lowered over an unresolved horror? Some suggested the beast was nothing more than a string of wolves, exaggerated by rumor and fear. Others argued it was one singular monster, a freak of nature never seen before or since. And in the taverns of Gevaudan, Where memory still burned raw, farmers swore they had glimpsed something beyond nature itself. A demon wearing the mask of an animal. Even in its so-called death, the beast refused to release its hold. It lingered in contradictions, in silences, in unanswered questions that gnawed at the people of France long after the last official hunt was declared a success. History often hides more than it reveals. What do you believe? Was this a tale of wolves and superstition, or of something darker, deliberately concealed? Share your thoughts below. Explanations rose from every corner of France, each attempting to cage the horror in reason. Some insisted it had been a wolf, nothing more, though a wolf of unusual size and ferocity. Perhaps it was not one, but many, a pack that hunted with uncanny coordination, striking with such violence that peasants mistook them for something supernatural. Yet those who had faced it swore they knew wolves, and this was no wolf. Others turned their eyes toward the exotic. The age of exploration had filled Europe with strange creatures brought back from distant lands. What if the beast was a lion escaped from a noble's private menagerie? What if it was a hyena, its laughter echoing through the hills as it tore into its prey? The reddish coat, the massive frame, the terrible jaws. To some, these details matched not the wolves of France, but the predators of Africa. More troubling were the whispers of human hands behind the terror. Rumors spread that the beast was trained, unleashed deliberately to sow fear, its scars and strange features the marks of a creature altered, perhaps even engineered, for the hunt. In the dark corners of taverns, people muttered that noble families or secret societies had set it loose, a living weapon meant to remind peasants of their powerlessness. And then, as always in times of fear, legend took root. To some, the beast was no animal at all, but a demon clothed in flesh, a punishment sent to scour the sinful. Others swore it was a werewolf, a man cursed to walk between worlds, condemned to spill the blood of innocents until some forgotten sin was paid. Each theory offered an answer, yet none could silence the unease. The Beast of Gévaudan slipped between categories, beast, demon, invention, leaving behind a void filled with speculation and dread. Which vision of the beast haunts you most? A wolf, an exotic killer, a man-made horror, or something born of nightmare itself? Let us know in the comments. The Beast of Gévaudan did not simply vanish with the passing of years. It endured, not in flesh, but in memory, its shadow stretching across centuries. The killings ended, the forests grew quiet again, yet the name remained a wound upon the land. A reminder of a time when fear walked in daylight and death carried the shape of something unknown. History remembers it as both fact and fable, a tangle of official reports, lost documents, whispered stories, and trembling testimonies. Was it wolf, lion, demon, or invention? No answer has silenced the questions. The truth lingers just out of reach, preserved not in certainty, but in the uneasy silence between legend and history. Even now, the Beast of Gévaudan reminds us how terror can bend reality, how fear and rumor can grow into monsters more enduring than flesh. It is a story that belongs not only to the dead of Gévaudan, but to all who still feel the chill of the unknown pressing close. At Echoes of Time, we uncover the mysteries that history left behind. If the story kept you listening, join us by subscribing. And if not, tell us why in the comments. Every echo, even dissent, is part of the story.